Good day, everyone. This is Blair Sinta. Welcome to the Recording Drums podcast. This week I'm speaking to Rick Jupp. Rick was a founding member of the band Elbow. If you don't know Elbow, please go check it out. Unbelievable songwriting band, incredible production. Rick played incredible parts. Just sonically, one of my favorite recording bands out there. And Rick was an integral and founding member of that. He left the band about 10 years ago, and now he is teaching at LIPA, the Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts, which is founded by Paul McCartney, I believe. So really turned out to be timely discussion for him about, finally wanting to open up about Elbow and the band, which I didn't know about. So that was great. And, man, he's just a fantastic guy. So I think you're going to learn a lot about production and the process of that, learning not only the process of that band and how they recorded, but also, how to take that into your own sessions and not be afraid to experiment. And that, of course, leads me to my drum coaching program. If you are a home studio drummer, if you are struggling with your room, if you are struggling with getting sounds, if you have good knowledge and you want to expand your sounds, expand your recording base, figure out how to market yourself better, please check out my program. You can go to my webpage, blairsinta.com, and you can get more information there. And other than that, enjoy the podcast. And I got a few more this season before I go on tour with Fits in the Tantrums. And enjoy this conversation with Rick.
Yeah, are you good? How's things with you, man?
Yeah, man, I'm good. Well, first of all, it's nice to meet you. I know we don't.
And you, man. What a pleasure.
I mean,
and thank you for having me on.
Of course. I mean, I'm a fucking longtime fan of the band and your playing and your whole.
Oh, mate, thank you.
You're pro. And it's funny because, I started this podcast and I typically talk to kind of more classic studio cats. And then somehow our Instagram connection, whatever, I was like, oh my God, we could just talk about some of these albums that you've made, man.
Yeah, man.
From the time I discovered the band Elbow, obviously, just for me, the process of your thought process and that whole thing is always fascinating to me, because I've been in bands and none of my bands worked out, but my favorite bands, there was the process of how that all gets built sonically. But at the same time, production wise, the bands I was in, I never got to get deep enough. I feel like there's a session thought process of sonic things, but then there's a band thought process, where you're not only creating the sound and the part, but then you're part of the production and you're seeing that all the way through. And for me, just listening to the Elbow records that you were part of for this 15 years or whatever, to me, it's just fascinating to try to reverse engineer. Well, how the fuck did you get there? You know what I mean? So when we hooked up, I was like, oh my God, man, let's I've always, I've gone through the process in my head so many times of how the fuck did you end up there? So, I mean, this is a great opportunity to learn that and for other people to hear about just
do you know what
angle of it. You know what I mean? I know that's kind
really
of
like a
big. That's not. I'm
it's a big
trying to put that all in one.
No. Yeah. It's I love it because I've got a tiny little podcast that I'm doing with a mate of mine, and through that process and through sort of being off the hamster wheel now for about 10 years. It's only now really that I've got to be able to process all of that and get into a mindset to answer these kind of questions.
Okay.
So it's really timely that this has come around. So thank you, man.
Cool.
I
Right on.
don't know what the fuck was going on in sort of stars and universe and shit, but
Yeah.
it was like, okay, this is great. So yeah, to sort of dig into that, we just didn't know what we were doing. We were learning on the spot. Again, most of us were self-taught. Mark and Craig, keys and guitar. They'd done sort of grade 6, 7, something like that. I think Craig might have done grade 8 on the piano.
Hmm.
But I think once we'd kind of sort of like osmosis, kind of just came together in sixth form. So we would have been sort of 16, 17, I think. Yeah, we were just, I think that the technical term was like any band, it's dicking about.
Yeah.
You're just trying to find yourself. You don't know who you are at that age.
Yeah.
And we just sort of gravitated, fairly misfit outfit. Mark and Guy hated each other at sixth form.
Really?
Like the fucking Bloods and the Crips. Do you know what I mean? So it was, across, daggers across the common room kind of
Playground.
vibe.
Yeah.
It was so fucking childish. But and then the legend has it that Mark was driving home. He was one of the cool kids. He had a car.
Okay.
He was driving home, and it was absolutely hacking down. And he saw a guy walking in the rain, and for some reason, he just went out. He just said, "Do you want a lift?" And he sat, he got in, and he had "Losing My Religion" on, and he just started harmonising with it. And Mark was like, "Do you want to be in my band?"
Oh shit.
And then it was like, "Oh right, yeah, okay, yeah, all right." Okay. And that was it. And I think it's always been a process of just having or getting to a place where we allow ourselves the luxury of time, which is vastly different to the nature of the business today. So it was always, that kind of a new girlfriend vibe where you just want to spend every fucking minute. Do you know what I mean? And we just have a laugh with it. We try shit out. We were rubbish for years, but we just stuck at it, and we got a little bit of a following at college at sixth form, and just did gigs and put on gigs, and it was super organic in a non cheesy way. It was like, let's just experiment. Obviously, we're kids, we're smoking loads of weed,
yeah,
drinking loads, and sort of finding ourselves. But I don't know. It was, with that time away, it really was like a bit of, there was something odd going on. There was something bigger than us going on, which, when I'm talking to bands, and I do a little bit of private mentoring as well with a few people. It's just like, look, it can be as simple as asking yourselves, why are you doing it? Why do you want to do it? We wanted to do it, and it's maybe not the right answer for everybody, but we wanted to just hang out. It was just fun. And then we got to a point, talking about the rainbow effect. So back then, I mean, this, there was a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah.
So when you got signed,
yep,
you'd have your check, you'd have your 100 grand and your 100 grand, and it would be like, fuck, okay, right, let's go.
Yeah.
Here's some gear. Make that record, go to a really nice studio, and then go out on tour, and that's it. And that, that's you done.
That was what we did. Yeah.
And you just go out there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now it's vastly different. You don't make money from the very thing that you're made to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think with that in mind, we were like, you know, yeah, we've got this romantic idea of being in a band and mates and we're hanging out and it's the stuff of legends.
Mhm.
But there was obviously, tactics involved, and Guy was very ahead of the curve, really, in terms of networking. Um, and something which I was just having too good a time, really. um,
Happens.
but I think it was just that thing, yeah. Um, but I think that's what resonated with our audience. And to sort of try and steer the ship back to the question really is, I think it was authentic. People knew that we were doing something different. We were good at what we were doing, and we put the time in and we put the effort in. And as beige as that sounds, it's got to be authentic. You've got to be responsible to what you're making, and then when it goes out, you get that reciprocal thing back,
Mhm.
which then drives the bus further along the road. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So you get the audience that are going to be there for 10, 20, 30 years
Mhm.
or whatever. And I think you know means that somebody like you would want to speak to me, who's been out of the game for 10 years, but it still resonates. It still sits with you, and you think, "Fucking hell, how did they do that?"
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I mean, I'm so stoked, to talk about it, and I think it was a very, um, it's a team effort, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's got to be, isn't it?
I mean, that's what I hear in those
Yeah.
records. Um, the thing that kind of blows me away about you is like your approach right even from the first record, where you're so song oriented and so sonic and production oriented right from the beginning. And I do feel like between the first record, forgive me if I don't know the name, but I do know the
Uh, Asleep at the Back. That was
yeah,
first. That was the first. Yeah.
and the second record is that I feel like there's like a writing development between those two records.
Mm.
Like that it goes kind of like from pretty damn good to really fucking good, and then it kind of stayed at really fucking good. But but the sonic approach, even from the first record,
Yeah.
is like right, it's there. It's kind of like, whoa, okay. So to me, it's like it took me, I don't know, a long time into my playing and my even playing on records to get to a point of like thinking sonically more,
Right.
you know. But it seems like you
Yeah.
just came out of the gate like that, and that to me is kind of astonishing.
I think it's very much down to um, the best form of naivety.
Mm.
There was no being objective about it. It wasn't like, oh, what can I do to that thing to make it better? We were kind of inside. It was very, very insular, very, uh, I don't know what is the word. Yeah, insular, for want of a better word. It was just very us working together. I would, and I don't know where this comes from because I kind of try and facilitate this um, at uni and privately and whatever, and also in sessions that I do.
Mhm.
Is that being able to, it's something I've taken from Benny Greb actually, which is singing and playing when you're learning,
Mhm.
or having a conversation while you're playing. So you've got the sort of polyrhythmic element without learning it. It's the feel aspect. So it's internal.
Mhm.
That's kind of what I'm trying to say. Is that when we were writing those early tunes, like Any Day Now, was a massive tune for us. I mean, I nicked the sort of the core element of the groove from Primus, from Brain,
Mm.
on the Brown album.
Okay.
Um, and because I fucking love that album, the drumming on it is just like, I don't know, something else. And the rhythmical element as well. So I was always kind of drawn to sort of multiple rhythms and working the drums into that. And I think that the sonic element was just experimenting. We had the sort of tape 4 track, and we do the sort of George Martin bouncing down and whatever, and Craig was very instrumental in that from the early days
Mhm.
of of just having like one mic and just trying to get stuff down, get ideas down.
Like on any instrument, no matter what you were recording,
On any instrument.
drums,
There was
piano, whatever.
everything.
Okay.
I remember and I think for me, in terms of sonics and the drums,
Mhm.
it all changed when, because we were pretty different, you know. Pete was into his rap, I was into sort of Soundgarden, that kind of rock metal-y vibe. Pot was very metal, heavy rock. Craig was I don't know, he was keyboard player, whatever they like. um, and Guy was very sort of avant-garde. He was very sort of art of noise, quite sort of synthy, and but he was well educated in terms of his musical palette, and he brought in Talk Talk, Spirit of Eden,
Yep.
fucking game changer for like, I don't know how much weed we'd smoked over the course of listening to Laughing Stock, Spirit of Eden,
Yep.
and the rest.
Yep.
But it's definitely Lee Harris for me. Just being that right in the middle
Mhm.
um, was a real. I don't think it was me being lazy, but I think it was very definitely that sort of dynamic arc that these things are responsible for,
Mhm.
and that visceral element of being in control and being a fader, if you will.
Yes.
That was really appealing for me as a player.
Amazing
Um,
concept that you just said.
yeah,
That's that's never thought of that. Like,
yeah, that sort of dynamic control,
yeah.
but the track Newborn, I used to love playing that.
Mhm.
Where it just you sort of you gauging everybody, and it's a really delicate operation when we're trying to bring that up
Mhm.
um, when we play it live.
But having like the musical patience at a younger age to recognize that, that's a lot of
I,
musical maturity, you know?
do you know what, man? I honestly do not know where that came from. My uncle Barry, he was a marine biologist.
Mhm.
He is a marine biologist, and there's a picture of him, and it was him playing drums at the university that he was teaching at, and he was behind the kit, big fucking bushy beard, red bandana, just giving it sauce. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I was like, "Hello, Uncle Barry, you're very cool."
Uh-huh.
And again, it was the sort of age old thing of just not being able to sit down, sort of rampant,
Mhm.
undiagnosed ADHD probably, but just couldn't sit still. But then being self taught, it was like I wanted to find out. It was like a fishbone, fucking Faith No More. You know what I mean? Mike Patton, left leg, open handed playing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, just yeah, all of that era, but just
Yeah.
that very expressive, very dynamic playing, big kits, the sort of Simon Phillips vibe. Um, but yeah, sorry, I'm going off in all sorts of tangents, as
No,
you can probably tell.
I mean, it's interesting to hear you mention those influences because I almost feel like it's almost like the opposite of like what I hear from you, like
Right,
so contained, and I mean that in a complimentary way. Like,
sure.
here is the sound source that really complements the song, and sometimes it's about the part or the beat
Hmm.
for sure, but sometimes it's so simplistic. Like I was literally just listening to. Sorry, I'm literally looking at this shit as we're going.
That's all good, man.
But um, give me 2 seconds.
It's all right.
So
I'm thinking like Little Beast. That track, I love that track.
I'm thinking of This Blue World,
Oh yeah, man.
right?
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
just a brush, and then halfway through you go to a tambourine, and that's fucking it.
That's it.
That's where the song opens up, and like it's so simple. I mean, it's literally you're just playing eighth notes the whole time, but then the sonic change is when the song opens up, and like it's like, well, you're not
Yeah.
like, well, let's. I mean, I don't know what the experiment. So here's here to try to tile this in. Were typically in a tune like that, were there a lot of things tried? Like, hey, the a full beat comes in here, like with a kit, or did you like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it was just when we had the fortune, really the good fortune to be at a place called Blueprint Studios. Big shout out in Salford.
okay,
Um, and we've done the sort of big studio, been to Real World down in Box, and then been to the Dairy in Brixton, and a few other places, and Parr Street in Liverpool, most of note because it's not there anymore. Um, and I think uppermost in Craig's mind was, and all of us really, to save a lot of money, is to be self-produced.
yep,
Craig
okay.
wanted to do that,
Mhm.
and I think with
From the beginning, even the first record, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So very much in terms of even when we're working with people like Ben and Steve and Danson and other producers, it was always that sort of thing of right, let's take the tips and tricks and mics and this that and the other, and then we want to do it ourselves. So we set up, I think it was Leaders that we set up at Blueprint, a really nice big room, everything set up pretty much 24/7. We were just left alone, and we had our little control room and then the big room. Um, and it was a case of just, I remember this, hunting sounds.
Okay.
So that's the ballpark that we were in. So we were finding sounds that complemented the record. So as you say, This Blue World, it was like Lippy Kids,
Mm-hmm.
literally a brush on a cymbal. This Blue World, eighth notes, and then the rise, the push,
Yeah.
is going to a tambourine.
Yeah.
But I think we tried like 3 or 4 tambourines, and then
Yeah.
we taped them up, compression. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where the experimentation was. But there was a nice little story with. We were trying to find a sound on Tower Crane Driver that was like a boing every second backbeat.
Okay.
Boom. I don't know. Guy had it in his head.
Yeah. Okay.
And apparently he was at his sister's house, and he'd made a cup of tea, and he was carrying him into one of the room, into one of the rooms, and he knocked against this. It was like a porcelain lampshade.
Okay.
There's your boing.
Yeah.
So he brought the fucking thing in, and then we were we were making a brew, and we were recording the exact kind. Yeah, some would say it
Yeah.
was a little bit up our own arses, and we had enough time to do this.
I mean but that's who gives a
But
shit.
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Exactly that. It was like, and it kept that sort of Peter Pan nature, which has obviously done its job in terms of it being able to still resonate with people now.
Yeah.
Just like, you know, the talk, the Lee Harris, the whale noises and all that, it's like it's fucking groundbreaking.
Yeah. So was that okay? I mean, you basically answered everything right there. It was always right, but that's
Yeah.
what I'm looking for. But like, to me, it just goes so deep. It's like,
Mm.
I have few tunes written down.
Yeah, man.
Shit, Firebrand and Angel. Um, Sometimes there's post production shit like distortion.
Yeah.
How much of that was you knew that was gonna come, or that was just in mix, and they're like, oh, this might also be cool. You know what I mean? Like this is where it gets
Yeah.
deep. Like because I know that Craig is engineering and mixing.
Mm.
How far ahead are you guys all thinking? Or are you recording with those elements in mind sometimes?
Yeah, I think we tried to get as close to what was in whoever was kind of driving the bus on that particular tune, as close to the source. It's like we were very wanted to sound like and whatever. It's that musician's language, isn't it? But we'd go after that sound rather than think, yeah, we'll just chuck it on later. As as I said before, with guys saying, right, we're going to go and hunt the sound now. So on what's the Friends tune? Fucking hell. Even I can't remember the
Good, I'm glad.
But we were trying to find the right pieces of wood to sort of so that sort of clap slap. It's not a clap,
Yeah.
but it's two pieces of wood coming together. So we spent a good couple of hours sort of getting pieces of wood from outside.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was just like, and the reverb in the room. I remember we had this big. Do you remember the Altiverb?
Yeah.
The plugin, yeah. So it's not my world, but it was just this fucking thing that Altiverb, and you measured. You took the room, the reverb of the room.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is fucking great. So we can have our room, and you'd go over in that corner and you'd go under the stage and you'd make a noise and we'd move the mics around. I mean, I love that engineering side of things.
Yeah.
Getting stuff ready, anticipating, 2-3 moves ahead.
Yeah.
So we could capture that thing, whatever it was. But I think we later on we did sort of think, okay, yeah, we need to sort of do more stuff later on, in the mix kind of thing. But I think we always tried to be authentic in the sound,
And the source.
in the source.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that with the drums, you know what I mean? Popcorn drums, making sounds out of stuff.
Yeah.
And trying to fix it somewhere where I can play it, where it's ergonomic to play. Yeah, it was. I think that's where it is. In answer to this whole thing is trying to be authentic. I think using a multitude of snares, different heads, and having the luxury of being able to do that and having the time to do it, which I'm really grateful for. And just to fuck about and try shit.
Was it often like, um, so when you guys were working on writing songs, whatever
Mm.
that process, because I'm sure there was different, like sometimes
Yeah.
it was a jam that would turn into things, or somebody brings the tune, then you go work on it, right? Um, do you feel like the song was always informing, like, hey, I'm gonna use like a wide open kick drum? Like, to me, like, this is where it gets super nerdy for me. It's like sometimes the way you're playing, it's like, okay, in the final mix, the kick drum is way back and the
Mhm.
snare is a very defined sound and that's up, right? But the kick drum sound is still unique, like the
Yeah.
kick sound, right? Or it's the opposite. The kick drum sound is very forward, and I feel like I noticed that a lot of times in the songs. The kick drum sound is very forward,
Mm.
but like the top half of the kit is farther back, and that's a mixed thing. But are you thinking about, do you know that? Have you thought that far ahead when you're playing? Like like you said earlier, like you're the mixer, like you're a fader.
Yeah. So
You know what I
you
mean?
would, Craig would sort of say, right, can you just have a little bit more on the right hand, or you know, a little bit punchier on the kick. I think it's being able to understand and defer to the you know the person who's got the ears, who's listening to it, in context,
Mhm.
but have appreciation of it, respect for it, but also be able to um, make that sound. Again, it's that authenticity. It's like, right, can we try a different beta? Can we make a different beta? Can we just slacken off that? Can we retune it? Can we move that? Do you know what I mean? That mic needs to move 2 or 3 inches to the left. I do remember a lot of that.
Mhm.
We didn't necessarily go for a full take.
Okay.
If it's not necessary, we would loop. We'd find nice little chunks, stitch them together. Especially for Grace Under Pressure. That was us up in Mull, and Guy had the idea of having something on the drums which is really sort of frenetic and mismatched to this sort of beautiful top line that was very sort of orchestral and very sort of peaceful. And I just played for 20 minutes and just played whatever was in my head.
Oh wow.
And then we picked out this horrible sort of 15-bar loop. I think about 15 bars. I can play it, but I don't know what it is.
Right.
um, and it comes around odd against the sort of the chord progression off the
Mhm.
top. But again, that was like it was all very malleable. It was all very like right. What? How are you seeing it? How are you hearing it? Craig and Guy.
Okay.
And then obviously I would go into the control room and go, well, I can, yeah, no, I think this can be moved and that can be moved and I can do it, I can do it better.
Okay.
But it was very much a kind of like, um, yeah, and it sounds cheesy, but on a deeper level, it was a team effort.
Yeah.
It was like, no one, we didn't have any solos because no one person could or should be any, greater than the sum of its parts. Um, and that was kind of one of many reasons why it kind of ran its course for me, that it was becoming that. Um, but that's not to say that it was the time I spent behind the kit. And again, this is kind of a Joey Waronker kind of vibe where it's you'd whack the mics up and play super, super tight, and you'd being a drummer, I think you're able to embody the track a bit more. Do you know what I mean? Climb inside it.
Yeah.
Um, and thankfully that kind of came across, and it was
The
able to
actual
resonate.
technical skill to bring across what's being described
Yeah,
from
yeah.
said, which is really not always easy.
No, it's not, and again, it was hard to sort of understand what was going on because we would just. It's like I'm saying at uni, you've got to fill out this kind of portfolio, and it's the basis of your kind of CV, your website, your EPK, and all that kind of stuff. But the portfolio, we have to mark them on, and it's a chance for them to get outside their head. You know what I mean? And be objective about what they're building as a business.
Right.
And I think my process of doing that is now, it's like a decade later, going, fuck, wow, that was a really long way of doing things, but it was really effective. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the time, especially with, working out everybody playing percussion parts. So it was live, like Bones of You.
Okay.
So, we'd all work it out. Right, you do that and you do that. And it was all very malleable. And we thought it was okay. But I don't know, it just added to the sense of the impact of the track. It wasn't groundbreaking, it wasn't original, but it just, I don't know. And it feels right. It feels right.
I mean, I wouldn't, I don't know if I'd go, I don't know if I'd say that. I think sonically to get that deep, especially a tune like Bones of You, right? Like, there are things in there that, I mean, it sounds cheesy to say out loud, but like they sound like bones, right? Like, but
yeah,
to go after that and make it work and not be so obvious or like cheesy, actually, like it's subtle.
And
those sounds.
I'd never thought of that. I never thought it sounded like Bones, but it's like it's to me now. I'm picturing the sort of really beautiful images of your kind of kids' cartoon skeletons, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fucking hell, I never thought of that.
I mean, that's the way I hear it. Just sitting here talking to you, like just the title and like the recollection of. I don't know. Yeah. So I think it's super rare to have a collection of people that can work that deep for as long as you guys did.
Yeah.
And obviously things always run their course, right? Like personality wise or whatever the fuck, right? I don't know, and I'm not asking. You know what I mean? But I don't know, to have a body of work that is that deep, that lasts that long, and that process is. I'm sure there were times where it came together in fucking one day, and then there's other times where it took a week. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah. Like every band. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're working in such, I mean, you're working in such close proximity.
Yeah.
You've seen these people more than you see your girlfriend, your family, and everything, because you want to. And I think, you're absolutely right. It is such a fucking honor, really. Aside from all the other shit that was going on, but it.
But that's part of being in a band.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've had it this last couple of weeks where a drummer has been fired from 2 bands, and it's fucking tough, man. And it's like, triggering for me in terms of the way it was done and whatever. He's one of my students, and he's a lovely lad, but it's not working out. I don't know whether you found that, with everything that you've done.
Yes, I've been fired.
How 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 do you fucking deal with it? I don't know. I mean,
Well, it fucking hurts, that's for sure.
yeah,
Especially when you think you're doing something right. I would say, I think I'm lucky to say it's always worked out for the better. And of course, that takes time to resolve itself. And you can't see that at the beginning.
no,
Uh, but it's not, if that's the case, it's not the right situation for you.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's just part of life, you know. And in a few of those cases that I'm thinking of, thank God,
yeah, yeah.
actually,
I know.
you know, um, because something else came along that was better.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know, hopefully the personal relationships recover if that's important.
There you go.
Oh,
If it is, it is.
yeah,
If not, it ain't. You
exactly.
know.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's a tough one, especially now with the whole industry on its arse. Um,
It's so different
you know,
now. It's so different. Yeah, I mean,
it's fucking crazy.
yeah, I mean, we could go on a whole tangent about, you know,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know if we need to go there because
No,
but
it, I don't know. I mean, it's again, I found it really sort of cathartic over the past few months. I mean, I've only just put them up.
oh
I've
wow.
got one up here, there.
Okay.
There's a few little bits knocking around the house now. Whereas, not for any spite or whatever. I just didn't. They were just in the loft. You
Needed
know what I
space.
mean? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was like it's from inception, from the start. It was 28. It's 28 years, and it's like
Yeah.
fucking long. It's a long time, dude.
That's more
Um,
yeah, that's a majority of your life, like by far. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think it's yeah. Looking back, all the bullshit aside, it's the sort of recording process. I really did love that, and we had an opportunity to go to real world Peter Gabriel's place when it was in its fucking heyday.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And we got to do some mad shit and record around the world and do the things that people dream of, and it's like fucking hell, wow.
Yeah.
It's behind the velvet rope almost. It's like I sit here and talk about having the time to do something, but if you, I mean, you locked five idiots from a small satellite town just north of Manchester in a room. We managed to come up with something,
Right, right.
but it was very. I mean, it was a track that called September Subtime that we wrote. Well, we
Mhm.
ripped the shit out of Talk
Okay.
because it was just this rolling loop that went through. When we realised that we couldn't write singles,
Mm.
and so we thought, fucking all right, let's not bother. Um, and that was a one mic situation, um, and I think that as well was a real sort of consolidating thing that none of us knew what we were doing, but it was fucking really fun to just have that one mic, record every little bit of that song, and we made a song. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a
And I
crazy
think
bonding experience to
it is, isn't it?
create something. Yeah, I was in a band that was I felt really special about, and
Yeah,
it didn't go anywhere, but like it was like when the four of us were in a room, it was like electricity. You know what I mean? And I stand by that record, to this day. We just, there were so many circumstances.
yeah,
It just didn't go, but there was a thing. you know,
Yeah.
and, you know, fortunately years went where you got to carry it on for a long time, you know. What how does being able to do that for so long inform how you record now when you get called for sessions? Because obviously it's you know, the situations are not nearly the same, right?
Hmm.
There's not the time frame, the personnel is obviously not the same, but you have all this knowledge and you know what it takes to, like, hey, if we just take the time to experiment this, you know, but that's, you can't walk into a session and explain that to somebody, not necessarily,
No,
you know. Yeah.
I've been lucky enough really to sort of reignite the relationship with a producer who worked on he engineered the first couple of records, a guy called Danton Supple,
Okay.
who then went on to do, produced a couple of Coldplay records and some, some big hitters. And I've worked a lot with him, and we just know.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So we're kind of back in that sort of mindset, really. And I kind of enjoy, the session thing is great. And again, it's a luxury because it's like being an uncle, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You can dip your toe in, and then with a newborn, you can just hand them back.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
And you
That's
can go,
funny.
all good,
Yeah, yeah,
great, okay, and I'll see you later.
yeah.
And you just go.
Time for a diaper change.
There you go. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just like, yeah,
Out of
I'm
here.
off. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
In a really cool way. And I think it's where we look at that, the person being hired, and that's where I take. I'm really honoured in terms of, the work that I've done, but also being hired for that reason. That I can kind of work dynamically, quite fluidly. I can, even though I can't read, I've got a good sense of what's happening structurally and parts wise. And we can get sort of going pretty quickly. Use of mics and stuff. Working with Danson, he knows what the tune needs. Do you know what I mean? I've got a kit down in London. I think it's a '67 Gretsch, pink champagne sparkle, whatever. Beautiful kit. And then a couple of old snares and a set of Constantinoples throughout. And that's a good palette to work with. He can get some good variations with that kit. And to be honest, I mean, I'd love to do more sessions. I'd love to do more with different producers, different kind of tracks, but it's not happened. So I'm quite happy. You know what I mean? I'm not sort of rushing out there because we've got cats like Ash Sowen, Freddie Sheed. Those two boys are killing. But the session world really over here. There's obviously other amazing players, but those two guys are killing it, which is great. But yeah, we'll see what happens. If I get called, then yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Do you feel like if you work with like different engineers, newer, like a newer relationship, because you've been a piece of the experimentation, moving mics, picking mics, how comfortable do you feel kind of helping direct, not necessarily like in an alpha way, but like saying like, hey, I have an idea about this. I mean, how first of all, how deep is your knowledge from remembering all that stuff? And then
It's it
and then
it it it, it was all about like literally experimentation. I rarely saw Craig with a manual, with it, you know what I mean? It was just like,
Yeah.
kind of Glyn Johns, just stick it there. That looks okay. That looks about right. Do you know what I mean? We'd obviously look at where the overheads were going, but we need to get more hats, so bring that, measure.
Right.
It made it sort of a bit more, a bit more sort of boy's own, a bit more like, well, let's see, we need to put that mic halfway down the room. I mean, in terms of talking to other engineers, I probably wouldn't. I probably wouldn't say. I wouldn't have the confidence now, really.
Yeah. Because
I
it was
just,
such an experiment with each song.
yeah,
It's not necessarily relevant to, hey, I'm showing up to do a pop tune. Like, it's not
yeah.
the same ball game. Yeah.
And there was no constant.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, right, we're going to track the drums today.
Right.
We'd just be like, right, let's, are we going to start with the guitar? Okay, cool. Let's go with the guitar then. Do you know what I mean? So it was very sketchy, a little bit more professional if we were, with a producer, because you'd obviously have the financial implication. But when we were in Blueprint, it was just very much right. Let's hunt the sound for this today, or let's just try something new. It's not happening. Let's just fuck it off and go to the pub, and then we come back, and then it was very much like that, because we were saving so much money.
Yeah.
In terms of the record allocation. So it was like we could take our time. But I do remember on Cast of Thousands when Ben Hillier, we were at Parr Street, and Ben, we'd sort of been, I think we'd been there a week, and Ben sort of turned around and went, I'm going to stop the session because you haven't got enough songs and you're not writing any in here. And it was like, fuck, what? We haven't got enough songs. So that was a bit of a kick up the arse in terms of being ready, but we weren't. I don't think we were ever kind of ready in terms of writing phase. We'd go away to write, but we'd just have sketches. We wouldn't have completed tracks. Then you wouldn't have the writing phase, the rehearsal phase, sort of pre-prod phase almost, and then studio phase. Because we had that setup, it was just this sort of one big lump. And again, that obviously added to the effect of the records.
Yeah.
Being bodies of work.
Yeah.
As opposed to a collection of songs.
Yeah, I mean, it's right. It's such a different process. Being able to have that time, and I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but the luxury of time and the experimentation. Because I don't think you can. It's not, those are not like live sounding band records, like Soundgarden or whatever, right?
Yeah,
that's not the. It's just a very different sonic experimentation. I see it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're right. It's time, and I think being of its time.
Mm-hmm.
We were, the fucking stars aligning, and the spotlight was shining, and whatever. We were able to do it. And luckily, and with enough sort of, obviously hard work and graft and sacrifice and all the rest of it. But it's pretty fucking fortunate to be able to be in that position, and to get, a few of these on the wall. And it's nice to be able to reflect on it and again, like I said, it's so timely that I'm able to, you invited me on here to reflect and go, fucking hell, yeah, wow, holy shit, you know. We did some stuff because there's a lot of stuff that we did,
Yeah.
and as as a fellow creative, I'm sure you know that the self-critical arc and the kind of keeping yourself in check and not not fucking be self-congratulatory. We don't understand how much work we do and how much sacrifice we put into creating what we create. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not in our. And I'm not sat here going, beating myself off, going, look at me fucking platinum discs.
Yeah.
That's fucking makes me feel sick. But it's just a nice little. Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That was
weird.
good.
It's weird to get to an age and all of a sudden be able to look back because it feels like it happens overnight, even though it was X amount of time. You're like, oh wait,
Yeah.
I did all this shit. What? Oh, but when you're in
And
it,
again,
you're just going to the next thing to keep it going.
that's exactly it. And that. I mean, shit. You're still creating it, and it is that Peter Pan thing because the reason why we didn't get a job in the fucking first place.
And still can't.
I still can't, still won't. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And thank fuck for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you up to now, man?
We're not talking about me on here. Come on.
Go on. Tell me.
After, maybe after.
Okay. All right. We'll do it after.
All right. So there's two questions in my head.
All right.
And the first is like you can just say no. It can be a very simple answer. Is there something I should ask you about? Like you've answered my questions about the process and everything. Is there anything that I should, like I may be missing about like that process? I don't know, insights. I don't know, maybe for younger people or just or a cool fucking story about recording. You know what I mean? Like it's a very broad question, but you know what I mean? Like I don't want to like move on and like miss an opportunity of this of talking.
I think in terms of what I'm doing, it's not a fucking hard sell this, but it's just going around in my head the sort of cognitive elements of drumming and exactly what you've been asking tonight in how it's shaped your opinion and it informed you of how we did it and I did it, you know what I mean. And it's for me it was because I was self-taught. It's led me to look into how we learn and how we digest information and how we recall that story, recall it, all the rest of it. So I've looked really heavily into coordination. So coordination providing more of an ability to be creative quicker. The sort of Navy SEAL adage of slow is smooth, smooth is fast. I think it is. That kind of thing. And so I've tried to come up with these little. All it is just basic rudiments, but with your hi-hat doing the quarter note, right foot doing a couple of different ostinatos, so kick on 1 and 3, dotted quarter or a dotted eighth, and then a samba, but with a quarter note. So we're including, when we're doing our rudiments, we're including the feet, and that adds to the sort of cognitive element. There isn't muscle memory because muscles don't have memory cells, so it's all to do with building up your neural pathways. Playing open-handed is a good one for righties. Do you know what I mean? Playing open on the same side. So I think that as that's my kind of next thing in terms of teaching myself, visual learner, visual processing. I'm very interested in how other drummers learn and teach themselves. I'm not really a big advocate of the sort of grading system. It has its pros, absolutely, but I think especially for younguns, it should be fun. Grading for me really is like is sort of for parents to see measurable progression, and that's fine. You know what I mean? That's absolutely cool. But I get a lot of people who have been through the grading system and they're like, that's fucking. I don't know what I don't know who I am, but I can play like whoever you want me to play like because I've been judged on it and graded accordingly. And it's like I'm much more interested in how you play it. What's your interpretation of the track? And I love Moises. You know Moises? Fucking genius.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Get rid of those drums. They're great. They work because they're on the track. Fuck's sake.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Where are you going to go? And this links in with you know the Benny Grebs of the world who have been a massive influence on me in terms of my pedagogy and the way I kind of try and facilitate others' progression.
Mm-hmm.
You know, going back to the you know doing BVs when you know we wanted to have BVs on playing live. I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I mean, it looks good. If a drummer can do it, it heightens your employability as well. If you can sing and play polyrhythmically, neurologically, cognitively, you're having a blast, aren't you? So, I mean, how did you learn? Were you grading or were you self-taught or?
So my parents were both musicians, so my main learning was orchestral percussion.
Wow,
Yeah, so
cool.
they were basically like, "Hey," I was like, I want to play drums." They're like, "No." I was like, I played
Okay.
saxophone for a year. My father was a classical saxophonist,
Oh
and
wow.
then, long story short, I did both for a year, and then I finally
Right.
became a drummer. But my drum set playing was self-taught. And they were like, "Well, if you're going to do that, you have to play we need you to play something melodic." Because
Right. Yeah.
so I was
I wish I had. Honestly, man, I wish I had.
yeah, I was playing marimba, I was playing timpani, blah blah blah. But then once I got to college, then I was strictly drum set. So at that point, it was like jazz, super epic, academic, blah blah blah. And then I kind of deconstructed from there after that,
Great.
wanting to be more of a song oriented drummer and less, you know, all
Yeah.
shit. So it's almost it was like fine. So I think what you were just describing is like helping drummers find style. That's what it
Their
sounds like.
own style. Yeah.
Yeah. So I almost came at it the opposite way. It was like I was just
Okay.
given everything, and so I went to a university in North Texas, and we had to go through all this.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
learn tons of shit, and I always say that it took me 10 years to forget it, to figure out
And
figure out
and
who I
again,
wanted to
you
be.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not as naive to sort of think that it doesn't have an effect. Do you know what I mean? Because especially with exactly what you just said, you know, when I get the drummers at level 6, which is their final year, you know, I've got a couple of level 5s now, but they're still going through exactly what you just said. You know, the sort of oh Jesus, what they've got to do. You know, the sort of 48 drum
Yeah, the
rudiments,
facility of
there you go.
yeah.
And it's like I'm so glad I can just I just you know we've got one-to-ones,
Yeah.
and it's just whether it's better or worse, but at that point, you know, they're just about to graduate. They're in the last year, and we just play. we have a chat and we make sure the work has been done, portfolio's up to date, and then we spend 45 minutes just playing. And it's like, fucking hell, this is great. And that's where we have our conversation. Again, I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that. But the sort of feedback of that is pretty cool. So yeah, I think in terms of that's where my head is at, and I'm kind of really sort of leaning into that and really enjoying it. I think there's a guy I'm sort of hoping to do some workshops with called Chris Draper, and he has the seat. He's doing Hamilton on the West End in London. Fucking lovely guy, and he doesn't mind me saying this, I'm sure, but he had a brain injury a few years back, and that whole process of getting back and it's been a real challenge for him, but he's super eloquent. You know what I mean? He's a ghostwriter as well. Does a lot on LinkedIn, a lot on Substack. Very articulate in terms of the research that he's done and very knowledgeable about it. And we've hooked up. I mean, I feel like a fucking primary school kid in comparison to him. I'm saying words like semi-big words that I know, and he's like, fucking what? I don't know. He's up there. So yeah, that's been really interesting for me in terms of cognition and learning and processing and stuff like that.
Yeah, cool. It's deep. I feel like this is a deep rabbit hole, a good one. I just think I don't think it matters how anybody gets there. I just think as long as you
I
get.
agree, and that's what I think about. Coordination being your alphabet. If your proprioceptive element, big word, proprioceptive element of like, I know what my hands and feet are doing at the same time. Everything is working together and it all sort of fits in. There's a little bit of elasticity, but it's all there. Internal metronome is going. I can know the spaces subdivisionally. Things are popping in and accents and dynamics and all this kind of thing. But I'm actually big into meditation as well, and mindfulness. And I think that being able to sit back from where you are. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you just know where that one is. Active listening.
Yeah. While you're in it and being able to listen at the same time is a massive skill. Yeah.
It's huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
And do you think is it like, have we got it? Can it be taught to the level that we know, or facilitated rather?
You mean as a human?
Yeah. To get to that flow state.
I don't know. That's a fucking crazy question. For me, it was playing jazz and having to learn how to listen to everyone around you and be a cohesive part of something while improvising and just being part of the conversation, right?
Right. Okay.
But being able to do technically what you need to what you want to add to it, but having it be relevant, not just playing the shit that you know.
Yeah.
That to me, that's the active listening. Can it be taught? I mean, I do remember years of being like playing with a bunch of people, and some days being like I was fucking in it, and then other times just being like I was totally not I didn't get in the headspace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's learned over repetition and time.
It's weird. Sometimes I think it is inherent. It's just something. I think it's something that you can recognize, as you've just said. It's like some days I was in it, but I knew I was in it. Some days I wasn't in it, and I knew I wasn't in it.
Yeah.
So is that is that sort of from an external source, or is it you going, I feel it?
I think you have to be taught the concept of the awareness first.
Yeah.
I feel like there's some things I want to say right now that I don't want to go down that road.
We'll do it in post, man. We'll cut it
Yeah,
out in
I know,
post. It's
I know.
fine.
I just feel like there's, I don't know, maybe it's upbringing, maybe it's
Yeah.
and or learning at some place. There's some people who will listen and some people who don't listen, you know. But you can also be taught, you can be given the information like, hey, if you actually sit back and listen and process some, I mean, I guess one example would be to be in like uh talk about shit. Just being in like therapy for a marriage or something.
Yeah.
Like actually listening to what your
Yeah.
partner says, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
uh and that whole thing of like now repeat it back. Like I will admit at one point I was in
Yeah.
marriage counseling. Okay, fucking whatever, it's out there, right? But like no, you have to fucking listen and then repeat it back and internalize what somebody said and go, oh, all right, okay. And now,
It's that sort of that whole, like you say, it's sort of the my wife is a counsellor, so she does
there we go.
compassion. Fucking hell, she'd had to be, didn't she? You know, her sort of masters, the masters that she did, focused on compassion focused therapies, CFT. But she, when she was doing her degree, she had a book, and I can't remember the author, but it was TA, transactional analysis, and the book was called Games People Play,
Okay.
and that's sort of, you know, the ego, child, and something else. Do you know what I mean? And again, it's you know, and looking back and reflecting, we really didn't have any kind of ego. That came later, and you know, especially me. I mean, I fully admit I was a fucking idiot. But do you know what I mean? You know, the tracks that you mentioned and you said you resonated with you, and early days of a band, and you know this. You were in it. You were flow. You were just, you know, fucking Mr. Miyagi. You were just in that final fight scene, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, Keanu Reeves in The Matrix with all that shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
The one-handed defense.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's the only way I can kind of describe it.
Yeah.
But you know, and then the ego sort of creeps in, and then in a child and all that kind of shit, which is obviously the way and the journey. But yeah, I don't know. I think to be able to or to have captured that naivety and innocence and the child, which is what we're all trying to fucking get back to.
Yeah.
It is yeah, it's something I'm really really fucking proud of.
Yeah, there's something to say for like just ignorance is bliss and being able to get it. And there's no
And a
doubt.
shitload of weed. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, and you, I mean, because you know, honestly, like most art probably wouldn't be made without. I mean, I mean, I have my own kids, and now I'm literally like, oh my god, if they wanted to be musicians and they don't, but I'm like, well, that seems like a very scary thing to go try to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even
Yeah.
though I'm still fucking hanging in there. You know what I mean?
No, man, you're
But
killing it.
just not having that ignorance anymore of like this is what I'm gonna fucking do, no matter what. I don't care how I'm gonna make a living. I mean, I'm gonna make a living somehow. You know?
Yes, and you will support that, and you know, again, you know, you work in, you know, shit o'clock to shit o'clock, and then you have a couple of hours kip, and you throw some food down your neck, and then you go and rehearse, and that's work. That's your work. You know, the other shit is, you know, your night shift at the factory or whatever is yeah, that's fine. I don't give a shit about that. You know, I want to be clear and present at rehearsal. and you know, that's the thing. But like I said before, you know, the industry is it's a bit screwed at the minute. You know, the only way you're going to make money is by merch or playing live, and that's where the time is taken. You know, the actual physical thing of writing songs and recording them and releasing them are all just, you know, that's channeling towards your live show and your merch. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to change. I don't know how or when that's going to happen, but
I mean, the good thing about home recording is that,
yeah,
you know, there is a luxury of time in a certain sense if you choose to use it. Um, it's definitely cheaper.
and it's quality. You know, it's quality recording. You know, but again,
But you also have to have the uh you know, like in a place like mine, it's very small. It's you I can't have five people
mm,
in here to do this. Like just
yeah,
physically, it's not going to happen, you know.
yeah,
So that cohesive energy of the experimenting and the idea, like literally having people physically present to throw their ideas around
mm,
is difficult. Besides money.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, at every turn, you know, if you're home recording, you've got to have decent gear. You know, and you can do it on a budget, obviously, but you know, as a musician, you've got to know how to do it. You know, plenty of times with students, it's like I'm waiting for a producer. You know, the producer's not got back to me yet, and these are other students who are on the production course. Um, and it's like, you know, what do I do for mastering? You know, do I join PRS? That's you know that's 50 quid. Am I going to earn 50 quid over the next 10 fucking years? Is it worth it? Do you know what I mean? And it is unfortunately it's down to who you know, um, and that sort of nepo angle. Um,
Yeah, on
if you want to,
a bigger.
you've got to be good. You've got to be good. Do you know what I mean? Hands down. You know that's the kicker. Do you know what I mean? But if the opportunity is presented to you, it's like with them. I don't mind talking about this, but you know, like Fred again.
Mm.
You know, I heard his album, a couple of tracks first off, and I was like, fucking, this is amazing. You know, my wife got me into dance music when we first started going out. The sort of Dave Mancuso loft sessions, and you know, sort of the early Daft Punk and
Yeah.
whatever. Fucking loved it. As a drummer, amazing. But yeah, when I heard Fred again, first of all, I was like, this guy's fucking amazing. And then obviously it was like, you know, the dude's from um, financially stable background, quite opulent, and he lives next door to Brian Eno. And I think that's his godfather or something. That there's a connection. And I was a bit ashamed to say that I was a bit like, oh, fuck off. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, and I am ashamed to say that, and I'm, you know, quite embarrassed in terms of, you know, the sort of nepo and whatever angle. And then I sort of, I mean, I still listened because I just loved what he did and how he was doing it. And then I saw the Zane Lowe interview that he did, and he was manually playing into that iMachine or whatever he was using, and doing his thing. And I was like, fuck me, that guy's good, and he wants it. He had that want, which is kind of what we were saying before. That sort of, where does that come from?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you know, I'm going to shut my mouth. I was an ignorant dick, but it was, you know, nowadays that's kind of the case
Yeah,
for a
but I
lot
think
of for a lot of artists.
right. But it sounds like what you're saying is like you connected with it, but then there was an element of it that you're like, oh, this is not real because there was something handed. But then you
Yes,
saw the talent, and you're like, oh shit, no, he actually put the work in.
there's that the work,
Connect.
but I think as well, you know, linking it in again, it's that ability to have time.
Yeah.
And kind of not worry about, when I'm talking in the sort of professional practice seminars, it's like we've got a fast food, like Taco Bell, we've got Greg's, like a shitty fast food thing, but the Greg's effect. So you would get that sort of shit part-time job to supplement the ability to buy Pro Tools, to get a mic, to do this. Do you know what I mean? But if you didn't have to think about that, then you would be able to put 24/7 into it. So,
I agree partially, but I also agree about like the drive that it takes to do something, learn something minimal, especially when your time is limited because you have to take care of life, right? And I think we all know that there's plenty of examples of people that have created great shit out of real shit circumstances.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I do still think, I think part of it, like where it gets confused is the pot of gold at the end, like what we mentioned at the beginning, like the record contract. Like you put all this fucking time in and then, okay, we made it to this point. We still have, it doesn't mean we have success, but somebody's going to give us a shot.
Yeah.
Now it's harder to find the shot unless you know the right people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a no, you're absolutely right, man. I think it does come down to that want.
But you still got to put yourself in the position, one way or another, of shit, dude. I knew 3 people when I moved to LA, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn. You know what I mean? But like,
toot it, man.
I didn't know anybody when I moved here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I knew 3 people, and like, I was gonna do it no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I don't know. You know what I mean? This is like a fucking endless.
No, it's an endless cycle, but I think it's good to have the discussion about how the industry moves forward from the musician's point of view. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's hard for us to relate.
There is that.
I think it's really hard to relate because it's hard to get out of like the cycle that we saw from when we were growing up. It's like, okay, we put this work in to try to get to the record deal or knowing that producer, right? And now it just seems like, well, what the fuck do you do now?
And it's that sort of work smarter, not harder. Do you know what I mean? We grafted back in the day, and there was an element of luck, but there was an awful lot of work involved. But it was more open to everybody.
Yeah. Yes.
Nowadays, right. So back then it was more open. The competition was more open with that pot of gold at the end. Now it's just open. It's fucking, it's free for all, But again, it's that want, isn't it? Anybody can be a fucking producer. Do you know what I mean? Put a couple of beats on Instagram, and it's like, look at me. I'm going to invest my money, and I'm going to go into digital marketing and make $1 billion a month. I mean, I don't understand that, but they will soon fade. The ones who are doing it for the right reasons, the good will out. It will happen for them.
Yes.
But yeah, it's like anything. It's hard.
Yeah.
And to also be, it's the opinion thing. Everybody will try and, not everybody will try and shoot you down, but it's trying to get these, I mean, they're still kids. Do you know what I mean? There's, 19, 20, still kids, and they put something up on TikTok, or they put something up on Instagram, or they release a tune, and somebody goes, "It's fucking shit, that." Right. You think,
right? What?
I mean, I remember the first review, and somebody going, "You're fucking boring." it was like being shot. it was like, how fucking, where do you fucking live? You don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
shit.
your confidence can be ruined now real fast,
Mm.
or you can be overly have your ego be overly blown because the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
whatever chamber you're yelling into, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I think it's part of, and I know, I'm out of touch, and I don't know the industry.
I'm
Um,
not sure anybody does at this point, but then again, we may
I think
sound
you're
old
right.
as fuck right now, so who knows,
Yeah, I'm feeling it. My wife got me a pass to go to Reformer Pilates.
Okay.
Yeah, I fucking loved it. It was on, the beds that move and you're on
Oh
it.
yeah.
Anyway,
Yep,
it's
yep,
fucking great.
yep,
I love that shit.
yeah.
And I loved it. But she was just like, "You're doing the bloke thing, like lunging." I was like, "Fucking getting in there, and you know what I mean? Let's go." And I've not been able to walk for about a week. It's so fucking funny. And I'm like, "Yeah, you're 51, dude. Back off."
That's how old I am too. So in the fucking
It's
yeah.
the best age, man. It's the best age. I love it. Love it.
Well,
But
Richard,
that's another thing as well. It's the physical aspect, mental health aspect, and those two things are really really prevalent now, especially with having to play live to make some money. It's
yeah, physically stay in
anyway,
the game. Yeah,
that's a whole other podcast.
yeah. Well, man, thank you.
Thank you,
It's great to meet you. Yeah.
and you, man. I've really enjoyed that, and as I say, the timing has been, yeah, really, really, really relevant.
Cool. Well, that's fucking awesome. Yeah.
What an absolute honor, man. Thank you so much, and I've loved chatting to you.
Yeah, man. Well, we'll be in touch for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, keep up.
All right, man.
All right,
Let's
dude.
speak again soon.